Hi, it's Stacey. Are you owning your you-ness, or are you the type of person who shies away from your magic? Today, we're talking all things being you and what it means to move beyond our comfort zone. But first, I need your help. The podcast is growing, and I want to make sure I'm putting out content and topics that matter to you. I've put together a 5-question survey. The link is in the show notes. And if you fill it out, I will send you something delicious and delectable. Thank you so much. And now, episode 19 of the Where to Next podcast. Good morning, or maybe it's afternoon or evening, whenever you're listening to it. I'm recording this in the morning. I've just come back from dropping my kids off at school, and the sun is shining. And it's been a while since we've seen the sun in the morning in San Diego. And there's that meme that goes around something like, I'm about 8 million times nicer and kinder and a better person when the sun is shining. And yes, a cajillion yeses to that. It is so true. I think even my dogs are happier when it's sunny out and they get to walk and it's dry. I digress. Today's topic is inspired. It came to me earlier in the week. I was on Instagram, and Kathy Heller is one woman I just love to follow. She's inspiring and motivating, and she's super sharp and savvy. And she posted a quote. And it goes something like this. Ladies, please don't go through life trying to be small, silent, accommodating, and convenient as possible. Speak your mind, even if your voice shakes. Don't subscribe to extreme forms of modesty. Own your beauty, intelligence, and energy. Be fierce and apologetic always. And I hearted that, and my initial reaction was, yes, so much more of this. And then my next thought was, well, yeah, and how do I do that? And then I had another thought that was, yeah, and that's just not me. And I've had all those thoughts about me in the past, and I'm betting you have too, because we're human and we have brains, and that is just how our brains work. So I want to talk to you today about owning your you-ness and moving beyond the edges of your comfort zone. There's so many reasons why we stay modest and we don't own our gifts, our beauty, our intelligence, our strength, whatever it is. And they start in childhood, really, with our parents' beliefs and our grandparents, the societal messaging we get. Maybe it's part of our culture, our religious community, friends, family. As we get older, we learn certain isms. We learn how to be, how not to be in the world, what we see other people do in order to, quote, get ahead or be successful. I know growing up, my mother used to tell me, children should be seen and not heard. Women need to be polite. And as a child of the 80s, I grew up with all of that women can do everything stuff. Do you remember that movie Working Girl with Melanie Griffith, right? I just remember seeing her in these giant shoulder-padded suits walking into the office, and that was sort of the ideal. I grew up believing that as a woman, I can have it all. And then real life and real experience taught me otherwise. Maybe I can have it all, but just not all at once. And I'm to a point in my life where I'm not even interested in everything. I'm interested in defining what my all is. Most of what we believe about what it means to be a human, what it means to be a woman specifically, we absorbed so long ago, and we're not even aware of what we carry with us. We very rarely question and explore and tease out what we believe and if we want to continue believing it. Here's the thing. We get to decide what we want to believe in the world. We get to decide who we want to be. We have a choice, but no one taught us this. This is not a class that they offered in school. And so unless you've gone on any of these explorations or journeys, whether it's with a mentor or a coach or even by yourself, we haven't done the work, and we don't do the work of understanding how we are, why we are, and why we believe what we believe, and testing our beliefs and choosing them. It's just like going into the supermarket. You know you're buying fruits and vegetables today. You know you're going to buy lettuce. And I don't know about you, but I buy heads of lettuce. So I pick up a bunch, I look at them. It's like apples. I look for the brown soft spots. I look to see if there are any nicks, and then I put them down. And we can do that very same thing about that inner work when it comes to choosing what we want to believe and how we want to show up. We don't know how. Maybe we might think, oh my gosh, this is luxurious or indulgent, or gosh, that's not for me. She has so much time, or she has so many skills, not just me, but somebody else. And I don't want to do this work. Maybe we're afraid of what we're going to discover. Maybe we realize, wow, we've been holding a belief about ourselves to be true that, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to let it go, or who would I be without it? Maybe we're just so unaware we don't even know where to start. And that is all okay. The purpose of this is to just be aware for a second. If you take nothing today, take with you this, that you have a choice in how you show up. You get to decide who you want to be and what you want to believe about yourself. And if you want to believe that not tooting your own horn is the way to go in life, that's okay. But maybe you want to be more of who you want to be. Maybe you want to step into a different version of you. Maybe you want to go and do that thing. Maybe you want to own your gift. Maybe you want to humble brag to your friend because your friends love you and they want you to be great and awesome and yourself. Now, none of this is to say this is good or bad, wrong or right. All of this that I'm talking about is what happens when humans exist on the planet. It's how our brains function. It's how our brains operate. I've talked a lot about this in the past. It's how our brains work. And it's what it means to be a member of planet Earth. This isn't about a go big, go home, total transformation of yourself. This is not about leaving your friends behind, becoming the newest, biggest, best version of you overnight, because it's impossible. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work for a variety of reasons. Most of all, it's not realistic, and it's not what you really want. When I coach women, there are so many parts of ourselves that we love, people own, and rightfully so. And a lot of times we fixate on the one or two things about ourselves that we don't really like or we wish we could change. And we paint ourselves into a corner, and we tend to look at our whole life, our existence, or this moment where we are through that lens of those one or two things that you wish were different. And being aware that you're doing that is huge. Now, what do you do if you want to go and own your you-ness, right? If you want to go and do something different, if you want to move beyond your comfort zone? Well, there's a saying, nothing changes if nothing changes. If you want a different result, it requires you to be a different person. Again, not wholly different. Maybe you're changing one small thing. Maybe you're changing one habit. You have to think differently. You have to feel differently. And you have to show up differently than you have in the past. And this is great news. It's the best news because change is possible. Our brains are plastic, meaning they expand and they grow and they change based on what we're learning, the brain food we feed it, our environment. We used to think not too long ago, the past 20, 30 years, that our brains were finite and that they were fixed and that we really couldn't grow and expand. But we know so much more now. And that whole field of study is called neuroplasticity. Think about learning a language, right? Every time, that's the very simplest explanation. Every time you're learning a new word, you're changing your brain for the better. However, when you're owning your you-ness or you want to change something, remember, your brain is designed to keep you safe. And in simplest forms, anytime you want to change something, your brain interprets that as a threat and will do whatever it can at any cost to keep you safe. And often that is when your brain comes online and says, oh yeah, no, you can't do this. It starts talking to you and saying, who are you to think that you can do this? This is not in your best interest. This is not safe. You're going to be judged. You're going to be kicked out of the tribe. And that is your brain, right? Saying, do not proceed. In order to proceed, one of the things that I've really been into the past couple of years is regulating your nervous system. In very simple terms, your nervous system is your body's command center. And this command center is what senses danger, Will Robinson, let's not go down that way, or yes, it's safe to proceed. So when we talk about bumping up to the edges of our comfort zone and doing something different, right? We've all heard the phrase, the magic happens outside of your comfort zone. Well, when you try to move beyond your comfort zone, your nervous system turns on and you go into this freak out mode. Now, maybe you're really freaking out, or maybe it's just a nervous feeling. This is not going to work. And that is why sometimes you can make progress on a project or some adventure that you may be going on. Maybe you're putting yourself out there and you make kind of small steps forward and then you take small steps back because somewhere along the way, your brain says, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. And your body interprets that as dangerous and you kind of pull back. It's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. Again, nothing's gone wrong. It's just how your body's working. But regulating that nervous system, teaching yourself how to proceed through the edge of your comfort zone, knowing that it's going to be okay. And we can't do this work alone. A lot of times we need to talk to someone. Maybe you need a therapist, some sort of coach to work with. I'm obviously a huge believer in coaching because when you're trying to make a change, connection to yourself, connection to others, co-regulation, being in community with people who know how to do this work, who are doing it at the same time, those things matter greatly. Community, co-regulation, connection. And sometimes we just need help. We need guidance. If we're going to do something that we've never done before, we can think we know how, and we very well may. But sometimes we need a little bit of help and extra support. Sometimes we need to slow down to go faster. We don't need to dive off the deep end. We could literally wade into the pool, right? Diving off the diving board into a plunge pool, super exhilarating, but also, a lot for the system. Some people like to wade in. It's different philosophies, and finding what works best for you is what's going to allow you to own your you-ness and move beyond the edge of where you're comfortable. I also encourage you when you're in these moments, as you think about making a change or doing something, maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to write a short story. Maybe you want to write a page in your computer where no one's going to see it. These are all new things for you that you've never done before, right? Pay attention to how you're talking to yourself. Are you saying things like, oh my gosh, Stacey, get over your big self. You can totally do this. Or are you saying, yeah, I see. You're a little nervous. You're a little hesitant. And that's okay. We're going to proceed anyway. They're so different and they matter big time. Because when you start shaming and blaming yourself and trash talking and come on, Stacey, you can do this, it just doesn't feel good. It's threatening to ourselves. But when you can calmly talk to yourself and get yourself kind of on board, imagine that you're bending down and you're talking to your inner child and you grab her hand and you say, come on, babe, we're going to go and do this. It feels so different. It feels connected. It feels honoring. It feels like love. You can always ask yourself. One of my favorite ways to have a conversation with myself is to put my hand over my heart and take a couple deep breaths and say, what's going on today? What do you need right now in this moment? Irene Lyon, when I talk about the nervous system, Irene Lyon is one of my favorite specialists on this topic. I'll link to her in the show notes, but her website is irenelyon.com, IRENE. And I've taken some of her courses and she is super knowledgeable in this area of nervous system regulation. She has a whole self-study course and you can go there and check that out. And the last thing I want to offer you as you think about owning your you-ness and moving to the edges of what's comfortable for you, pushing yourself, is doing something different but fun. Something that is just for you in this particular moment. Last year, I took a horseback riding lesson because I'd been thinking about it for years and wanting to do it. And it got me in touch with my 12-year-old self who used to take horseback riding lessons. And it was so fun. And it was such an out-of-body experience. And it was new. So my brain and my senses were all sort of titillated and sparked. And I loved that. Doing something new and doing something fun and doing something joyous that's just for you. It can be you alone. It can be with other people, but it gets you into a state of love, of creativity, and it will offer insights that you may not have when you're kind of doing your daily life, because most of our daily lives are repetitive. But when you're totally in your body and you're totally having fun, oh my gosh, that is when goodness happens. I want to leave you with this. You have figured out everything in your life so far up to this moment in time. And there has been a lot. You don't get to this moment in your life, no matter where you are, without going through some stuff. All of us, we've got stories to tell. I believe every day there are breadcrumbs in our life, and some of them we walk right by, some of them we see, some of them we actually bend down to pick up. What breadcrumbs are you going to pick up today? Maybe there's one thing in here that you heard that resonates. Go forth, go follow it. Maybe you put your hand over your heart and you ask yourself, what do I need right now in this moment? Whatever it is, follow those breadcrumbs. Hey, did you like this episode, or did anything I talk about today really land? If so, please send it to a friend or tell someone you know about this podcast. We need women to go and do the things that light them up, because everyone benefits when you are fulfilled and happy and showing up as your magical self and owning your you-ness. Sharing takes literally 3 seconds. You can do it from the podcast and helps me a lot, especially as I'm growing and expanding. Thank you so much. This podcast is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not meant as a substitute for mental health, care, or medical advice.